After Alex Pereira's big win at UFC 303, there's been a lot of talk about who he should be fighting next. So in this video, I'm going to break down all the potential options, give my opinion on what I think should happen, but I'd also like to hear your guys' takes. What do you think is the fight the UFC should look to book next for Alex? But I feel like we have to start off by just talking about how amazing this career has been so far for Alex Pereira. Not a single person could have predicted how amazing his career has played out so far, especially in such a short time frame. He has not even been in the UFC for 3 full years. He is already 8-1 in the promotion. He's won belts in 2 different weight classes. He has 4 title wins. 6 of his 8 total wins are against former champions. And he's also just become an insane draw with the fans. Arguably the biggest star in the UFC right now in terms of active fighters. Obviously Conor McGregor's always going to be number 1, but in terms of guys actively competing, he may be the biggest draw in the UFC right now. He's always entertaining and has arguably stepped up to save the last 3 cards he has fought on. He needed a main event in Madison Square Garden against Jiri Prochazka after the Jon Jones fight fell off. Then he came in on somewhat short notice to main event UFC 300. Then he comes in on 2 weeks notice to defend his belt at UFC 303. And in my opinion, when you have a fighter who's on that type of run, you need to capitalize. So as it stands right now, it seems like his most likely opponent is probably Magomed Ankalaev. And I think in terms of light heavyweights, he's definitely the most deserving contender. He's on a 12-fight unbeaten streak, has wins over Johnny Walker, Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, Volkan Ozdemir, and Nikita Krylov. Now that's a pretty solid resume, but I think the one thing that's missing is like a real signature win. He probably had that opportunity against Jan Blachowicz. They fought to a draw in his first title shot for the vacant title. That probably, would have stamped him, given him a lot of respect amongst the fans. I think the issue here with the Magomed Ankalaev matchup is not that he doesn't deserve the fight. It's just that he has zero hype surrounding him. The casual fans don't know who he is. Even the hardcore fans, I don't know if there's anyone out there who's riding or dying, with Magomed Ankalaev. And when we look at Pereira's last 6 opponents, they've been Sean Strickland, Izzy twice, Jan Blachowicz, a former champ that was a #1 contender fight, Jiri Prochazka twice, and then Jamal Hill. When you look at all those names, those guys being champions, draws, fighting Magomed kind of feels like a step back in excitement, which isn't ideal given this run that Alex Pereira has been on. And personally, I feel like Alex Pereira has earned the opportunity to have a massive fight. The super fight that most people seem to be talking about is him going up to challenge Jon Jones at heavyweight. Now, I posted a video yesterday about how the Jon Jones-Stipe fight is a disaster. It's ruining the heavyweight division, so I would much rather see Jon Jones fight Alex Pereira than Stipe Miocic. Pereira would be going for a title in a 3rd weight class, which would be absolutely unprecedented. That would automatically launch him into GOAT conversations. It may automatically make him the GOAT if he could, win a title up at heavyweight. And even though on paper it seems like a pretty rough matchup, to get Alex Pereira to the ground, you need to close the distance, and Alex Pereira can knock out literally any human that is alive. So you wrestle him, you run the risk of running into something, a left hook, a knee, an uppercut, whatever it is from Alex. Now, personally, looking at the heavyweight division, I would rather see Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. I think Tom Aspinall has done more than enough to earn that title fight, but I don't think Jones wants that fight. He's made it clear he does not want to fight Tom Aspinall. He wants the Stipe Miocic fight. And unfortunately, I think Jon Jones will probably retire before he faces either Tom Aspinall or Alex Pereira. So even though I'd be interested in that fight, I don't think it's super likely. Now, the one option that I think is interesting but hasn't been talked about a lot is the Alex Pereira-Israel Adesanya trilogy. If Izzy goes out and beats DDP at UFC 305, I think you make the trilogy up at light heavyweight. Does Israel Adesanya fully deserve that opportunity? Has he earned the opportunity to go up, try to become a double champ again? No, but it's a massive fight. It's one of the best rivalries in UFC history. And then it also leaves you with another pretty big fight where you could make Robert Whittaker Sean Strickland for the interim belt. If Izzy were to go back down, if he loses, he'd fight then the winner of Whittaker Sean Strickland. So it kind of creates 2 massive fights. I just think this is the time where you have to make the biggest fight possible, and you don't want to let this massive matchup slip through your fingers, because who knows, right? Pereira's getting up there in age a little bit, even though it seems like he's just breaking into the UFC. I think he's 36, turning 37 soon. Adesanya's 34. We don't know how long these guys are going to be at the top of the sport for, so if that fight's out there, I think it should happen. Now, I think there's one last potential fight that also hasn't been talked about a ton, and I guess it's not necessarily a specific opponent. It's more just a move up to heavyweight Anderson Silva style. While Anderson Silva was the middleweight champion, he took 3 different fights up at light heavyweight. They weren't title fights, they weren't even like #1 contender fights, but they were against ranked competition up at 205, just kind of kept him active, going up a weight class, racking up some wins up there. And so maybe Alex Pereira wants to dip his toe in the heavyweight waters. Maybe that Jon Jones fight isn't out there yet. Maybe that Tom Aspinall fight isn't out there yet. But he wants to just get a taste of the heavyweight division. I think a guy like Alexander Volkov could make some sense. Volkov's on a 4-fight win streak, striker versus striker matchup. It would also give the light heavyweight division the opportunity to kind of produce a more established #1 contender. You could make the Ankalaev-Blachowicz rematch. The winner of that fight would definitely seem like a more desirable contender for Alex Pereira when he goes back down to 205. I think also at heavyweight, if it's not Volkov, you could throw Cyril Gane in the mix. I mean, sign me up to watch those two strike against each other. That would be an amazing matchup. So I don't necessarily think this is what's going to happen. Alex didn't seem like so set on going to heavyweight that he would take like a non-title fight, but I also don't think it would be the craziest thing. Like I said, we have seen it with Anderson Silva. So those are the potential options. Like I said, most likely, probably Magomed Ankalaev. The Jon Jones fight would be legendary. A win over Jones would send Pereira up to like unprecedented heights within MMA, but like I said, not the most likely situation. Personally, I would want to see that Pereira-Izzy matchup. I just think it's too good. The first 2 fights have definitely delivered. It's 1-1 in MMA. We need to see the third one. And then we also have that potential heavyweight move up. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Do you want to see him fight Jones, Izzy, Ankalaev? Is there someone I didn't talk about that you want to see him match up against? Let me know down below. But thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you all in the next one.